What's up, everybody? It's your guy, Ike Jones. We are back inside of the Auburn Express talking a little bit of Auburn versus Texas A&M. Auburn set to host the Aggies coming up this Saturday. The question on everyone's mind as an Auburn fan is, can Auburn figure out a way to get the win? Let's get straight to it. Again, Auburn's going to be hosting Texas A&M this Saturday. Texas A&M favored by 2.5 points right now, so just under a field goal according to the Vegas odds here. And it's going to be an interesting matchup. I mean, the head to head between these teams shows as if it's going to be a defensive battle, or I guess when a lot of people think about this game, they think about a defensive battle. But these two teams have been pretty good offensively. If you look at them head to head here, um, points per game in favor of Texas A&M, they're averaging just north of 32 points per game. Auburn averaging just south of 29 points per game. So that holds true to what the Vegas odds are. But I would be surprised if either team got to their point per game average, just the way that these defenses have been playing this year, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Total offense, as far as total numbers, Auburn has the edge now. Of course, this number looks drastically different when you look at them head to head versus what they do versus Power Five competition. Auburn has been cooking the books a little bit versus the lesser opponents that are out there. But Auburn has been able to move the ball this year, even in those games that they've lost versus P5 contest. In the P5 contest, it's really just been about scoring and finishing drives that Auburn has done so poorly on. Texas A&M averaging 412.4 yards per game. Passing offense in favor of Auburn as well, 256.5 to Texas A&M's just south of 200. And then rushing yards per game, that's where Texas A&M really shines. This rush offense with the dual threat capability of the quarterback, and Marcel Reed has really taken off. And they are averaging 212.5. Auburn at 172, a respectable number, but south of 200 yards per game in total rushing yards per game. But again, as I said, it's really going to come down to the story of the rush or the defenses here. Texas A&M only surrendering 19.4, and Auburn just south of 19 at 18.7. And that's going to be the story of this game. It's going to be how well, whose defense is going to show up most, and can you contain the other team's ability to score? Texas A&M doing a really great job of that so far this year. Again, giving up just south of 20 points per game, and Auburn doing a great job just south of 19 points per game. So going to be a defensive battle. Total defense here, Texas A&M giving up 344.8, almost 345 yards per game. And Auburn only surrendering 304.8 points per game, right? So that defense is translating over to the Power 5 games that they've played this season. Pass defense in favor of Auburn with 200. Again, Texas A&M not the most prolific pass team in the world. That's around what they average per game, what Auburn's surrendering. But the rush defense for Auburn has been stingy, 104.5 points, yards per game, and their rush defense for Texas A&M only 124. So this game to me is going to come down to, can Auburn stop the run and make Marcel Reed beat you with his arm? Again, the favorite in this game, according to the Vegas lines, is going to be Texas A&M, and the ESPN Power Index matchup predictor says that 57.7% chance Texas A&M comes out with the victory in this one. So Auburn at home versus Texas A&M has been a good situation for Auburn. Texas A&M, I believe, something like 4-2 inside of Jordan-Hare. So Auburn's got history on its side, but the history for this season has not proven to be very good for Auburn, and they've got a lot of work to do to figure out how they're going to generate points against a very salty Texas A&M defense. That Texas A&M defense is number 11 in the country in tackles for loss, giving up, tied for 11th. So there's a lot of team hovering around this, but 7.3 per game tackles for loss on average. So Auburn needs to stay ahead of the chains. We heard Coach Hugh Freeze talk about this earlier this week. In order for Auburn's offense to be successful, they've got to be good on first down. They've got to get ahead of the chains early and figure out how to stay out of the third and long situations, because that's when that Texas A&M defensive front really just pins its ears back and gets after the passer with their dynamic edge rushers that they have there for Texas A&M. When you look at the people who are making it go for Texas A&M and Auburn, the premium stats here brought to you by Vintage 2298 right there in Auburn, Alabama. If you want to get some premium cuts for your grill, for your tailgate, make sure you head over to Vintage 2298. They've got you right there inside the butcher shop. If you don't want to do the cooking yourself, go ahead and make a reservation and go and dine in there at the Vintage restaurant there, and make sure that you tell them the folks at the War Report sent you over there. But the passing leaders for each team, Peyton Thorne, the quarterback for Auburn, of course, at 63.7%, has 2,011 passing yards this season. So Peyton Thorne's having a decent year so far. Probably could have done a little bit better this year if, not for the turnovers, but doing well this year. Marcel Reed coming in backup duty to be the quarterback now for Texas A&M has 1,129 at a completion percentage of 59.3. But again, he is the total package in the dual threat nature. So it's not just his arm that you got to worry about. You got to worry about containing him as a runner. Speaking of runners, Auburn has Jarquez Hunter, who is the second leading rusher in the SEC this season, in the top 25 in the country, with 1,015 yards on the season. So already eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark last game, and is just looking to add to that total versus a very stingy Texas A&M rush defense, averaging 7 yards per attempt. Le'Veon Moss is the leading rusher at 765 yards per game and 6.3 yards per attempt. However, Moss is injured right now, so Texas A&M has been leaning on the services of Amari Daniels and, of course, Marcel Reed to pick up the slack. Amari Daniels at 550 yards on 99 carries, averaging 5.6 yards per carry right now for that team. The other running back for the team is actually questionable for the game. So the running back by committee not going to be something potentially for them. Reuben Owens is the third string back, or the third running back for this team, and he is currently listed as questionable for the game. So EJ Smith is going to be the next guy up for Texas A&M. He has 167 yards on the season at 3.5 yards per carry. But again, it looks like maybe Reuben Owens could come back for this game, but he is doubtful to return. So it's going to be the Amari Daniels and Marcel Reed show. Marcel Reed is averaging 5.2 yards per carry. So between the two of them, they're averaging a first down when they touch the ball on a series. So Auburn's got to do what they've been doing against the run to really slow down Texas A&M and figure out a way to contain the ability of the quarterback to get clear pictures of where he wants to either give or keep the ball, and then being disciplined on the back end. So the run support from the safeties might not be as ferocious in this game because he can uncork it with his arm. You're talking about receiving yards. Keandre Lambert-Smith, the leading receiver for Auburn, at 761 total yards, 19 yards per catch there. Noah Thomas, the big receiver there for Texas A&M, at 390 yards on the season, 15 yards per catch. That receiving core, again, they're not like a prolific passing offense, so there's not going to be gaudy numbers, but it's the yards per catch that you're going to get with them, because when they pass, it's usually to guys that are running wide open because of how good, particularly the quarterback, is with his legs and his ability to extend plays and then be able to get the ball out to receivers down the field. I mean, they have the vast majority of their receivers, as I'm looking here, that see the field often, are all averaging over 10 yards per reception, right? So it's not as if they're not catching the ball a ton, but when they do catch it, it's for a first down almost every single time. Noah Thomas also leading with 4 touchdowns for the team, in 4 receiving touchdowns there. When you look at the ability to get after it, tackles right now, the leading tackler for Auburn is Dorian Mousy Jr. at 62 tackles on the season. Torian York is the leading tackler for the Texas A&M team with 55 total tackles there on the season. When you talk about interceptions, you got to look in the direction of Marcus Ratcliffe, who has 3 total interceptions on the season, and Kayan Lee with the 2 interceptions for Auburn on the season. Auburn has not been intercepting passes a lot this season, but Kayan Lee has played well. Jay Crawford has played well since he's taken over the starting duty on the outside. And that's, again, I talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. The addition of Jay Crawford on the outside and the addition of DeMarcus Riddick in his snaps have fundamentally changed the way this Auburn team has been able to play defense, particularly against quarterbacks that can scramble. Allows you to be a little bit less dependent on having safety help to be able to defend. So you just need to be sticky in your coverage when they start to get into their scramble drill. And then you've got a guy that can go run down a quarterback in the open field in the person of Demarcus Riddick. And you already had some guys that could go and do that. But now you've added an additional guy. And then Amars Williams is another guy that's been able to come in and do that. But um, today's show, if you guys don't know, we are sponsored by the good folks over at Joy Mode. Hopefully, it is a joyous occasion for the folks down on the plains. But hey, even if you don't have things to celebrate, you can be at your top performance that evening when you get home. Joy Mode gets you 20% off plus free shipping if you use code rapport when going to tryjoymode.com. A natural supplement that is out there to help you with your performance, allow you to be the star player on your field of play. Make sure you head over to Joy Mode, 20% off plus free shipping when you use code rapport. Continuing talking about this game, and when you get into the brass tacks of this, it's going to come down to rushing the football. Fundamentally, it's going to come down to rushing the football. Now, Auburn's been good the last couple of games against teams that deploy running quarterbacks, but Marcel Reed's definitely a different beast, right? Like Diego Pavia, for all of the ability that he has, does not have the speed that Marcel Reese does. Now, Marcel Reese is not a powerful runner. It's going to be tackling him in space that's going to be difficult, but the combination of what they are able to do with Reed and what they are able to do with other running back whose name is escaping my brain for some reason right now, Amari Daniels, is really going to be a challenge for this Auburn football team to make sure that they are staying disciplined on their keys. Now, that's one of the great things that they've been able to do so far under DJ Durkin, is being disciplined. Now, they early in the season, the discipline of the secondary was challenged, and you saw it poke its head there a couple of times versus ULM, where they were too focused on the ability to try to get downhill versus the run. Now, ULM did not have the rushing quarterback to add to that picture. But when you talk about teams like Kentucky, second half of that Kentucky game, it was all the running quarterback with the big arm, right? You talk about the game versus Vanderbilt. It was all about the rush game and being disciplined versus that triple option look that they were going to give you, that inverted veer that they're running from the shotgun in Vanderbilt. And Auburn did a good job in both of those games, being able to both contain their quarterback and the running backs for those teams. But this Texas A&M team a little bit better up front, if you ask me, along the offensive line. So Auburn, it's going to be about discipline in their gaps and their integrity, and making sure that they are paying attention to their keys in this game, because a crease can go for a long way versus some very talented runners for this Texas A&M team. So Auburn's going to have to be salty on in their ability to stand pat in the run game and keep Texas A&M in third and long scenarios, and then getting off of the field in third and long. See, this is one of those games where third and long doesn't mean you've won, right? And this is one of those games where you don't want that third and Auburn thing to rear its head back up, where you get them into the third and long scenarios and you give up a long play on third down. Whether it's a successful attempt or not, it's something that gives them confidence that they can get into a fourth and short scenario and go and get the yardage that they need. So the target number here for this Auburn defense is going to be 150 yards. In the two losses that Texas A&M has had this season, they rushed for less than 150 yards. I think that's where Auburn needs to be able to keep this Texas A&M team in order to make this a competitive game. The other side of that coin is going to be field position. I think field position is absolute, special teams in general, but field position at the tip of that spear is going to be, can Auburn win the field position battle in these low scoring games, particularly when you go back and look at that Vanderbilt game. The difference in that game was special teams, making your field goals when you were in scoring opportunity, or converting touchdowns when you were in scoring opportunity, and field position, not having to drive the length of the field. When Vanderbilt was able to flip the field on Auburn, they started getting short fields. They were able to get in there and score in those situations. So field position is going to be key from a couple of different standpoints. Texas A&M, not pinning Auburn. It seems like every freaking week there's a punter that's out there getting his pitching wedge together, and Auburn's getting pinned inside their 5-yard line. And then on kickoffs, you're getting penalties that are pinning you inside your 10-yard line. So you're starting drives where you're having to go 90 plus on a consistent basis. That's number one. And then the other side of this is a thing that Auburn's been much better about these last few weeks, and that's turning the ball over. So not turning the ball over in, in positions where Texas A&M only has to go 20, 30 yards to get into, well, not even 20, 30 yards, 10 to 15 yards sometimes to even get into field goal scoring position. So field position is going to be a key thing. Who's going to win the field position battle in this one, in a game that you expect both defenses to show up and be a game where it's going to come down to a couple of possessions? Who's going to be able to score touchdowns versus get field goals in those scenarios? When you do get your field goal opportunities, are you making those field goals? And who's going to be able to drive the ball, get a couple of first downs, flip the field, let your defense play with a little bit more room behind them and try to keep the other team in panic mode defensively, where they feel like they've got to come up with a play? Who's going to be able to do that most effectively? I think that's going to determine this game. Going to be looking really heavily at the special teams for both of these teams. So now what I want to hear from you all is, what are your thoughts on this game? Score predictions. Does Auburn have a shot at this? Is anybody giving Auburn a prayer to go and upset the party this week for Texas A&M? This game looks like a must-win type of situation. Texas A&M's got Texas next week, so if they don't get it done this week versus Auburn, they have to win versus Texas next week to even be in the conversation for the college football playoff. Can Auburn play the spoiler this week at home? Senior day, a lot of young men getting their last opportunity at collegiate football out here on the field at Jordan-Hare. Can Auburn get it done for those seniors in a last hurrah this season and get themselves in a position where they can be potentially playing for bowl eligibility during the Iron Bowl? Let me hear your thoughts on that. Score predictions, all of those right down here in the comment section. Definitely want to get into that. As always, I appreciate you guys jumping in here during the Auburn Express with your guy, Ike Jones. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.